Hey everyone, it's time for our Power Loader Q&A. We got tons of great questions from our audience, so we're going to try and shed some light on more of the details about how this awesome project actually works. How fast can it go?
Well, the Caterpillar base can go about 12 kilometers an hour, although it's kind of sketchy at that speed because it's a little bit tippy.
Yeah, if you floor it, it actually kind of starts to do a wheelie, which is slightly terrifying. But we could put a wheelie bar in the back. Maybe. What's the maximum weight that it can lift? And I might have missed this in a previous video, but what's the total range of motion on the arms?
The max weight that the whole system is rated for is about 7,200 pounds, or 3,600 pounds per arm. Although I wouldn't push it that far, and we'd prefer to stay below 4,000 pounds, just for stability reasons. Each arm has 5 degrees of freedom, plus the grippers and the tilt, so 13 degrees of freedom total.
How much hydraulic fluid is inside the power loader?
So my estimates suggest there's about 80 liters of hydraulic fluid in the system at any given time. Although we went through probably about 4 times that much. Throughout all the testing and the wiring and the leaks and the unwiring and the draining and the filling, we've gone through a lot of hydraulic fluid.
What kind of tech progress would we need in the future to evolve to a legged version?
Well, we need a lot of energy. That's the biggest thing, is just even getting the engine. There's nowhere else to put it on this thing, and we need an engine of that size to be able to quickly and accurately move the legs to be able to stabilize the whole system. The biggest thing is just the power system, but also we need improvements in balancing technology, response times, hydraulic controls. Basically, it would just be very slow and very impractical, even with the technology improving.
One of the other big issues is the design of the power loader in the movies is extremely top-heavy. So while it would be possible to build it with legs, the likelihood of it falling over
Very high.
it's going to fall over. And if you tried picking something up, that would almost be impossible to balance.
Yeah,
like imagine these arms in front of you holding a weight and you're balancing on 2 little feet.
Yeah, the only reason humans are able to do it is because, first of all, we can lean all the way back onto our heels or onto our toes, right? So we need a lot more movement in the ankles, in the knees, and in the back to be able to stabilize forward and back. But also, to take a step, we have to move our entire weight above one single leg. To do that, we'd also need some really complicated hip joints, which, with the amount of payload this thing's capable of carrying, would be huge and very bulky and would look nothing like what it does in the movies.
So in summary, a walking mech is possible, but probably not a walking power loader.
No.
If we were ever approached by a big film studio to create something similar to this, would we? I think we would.
I think we would, but the film studio would have to wait 3 years.
I think we could build it a bit faster than 3 years now. The bigger issue is cost. We haven't answered that question yet, but this thing was a pretty penny, which most film studios probably wouldn't want to spend that much money on when CGI is so darn cheap.
Yep.
What was the scariest moment in the power loader build, besides looking back at the total cost?
So one of the scary things was actually running software on this thing. Knowing that it's basically a fully autonomous robot, if the software had a lot of bugs in it or did something unexpected, it is terrifying. Because we have a really heavy and really powerful machine here doing who knows what. And every time we'd update that software, it'd be that fear of, all right, you ready to press start? All right, what about pressing stop? You ready to press stop? Okay, then we can run it.
Definitely. Will you guys make a power loader pilot suit?
Yes. I really want to build a VR suit. So you can put on a pair of VR goggles, have a camera mounted with head tracking, and then use the 2 VR controllers to accurately control the arms. So you can basically be in the power loader anywhere in the world and controlling it remotely from a driver suit or a pilot suit.
Which hypothetically means you guys could control the power loader from your home.
One day.
That's terrifying. Let's not do that. Will you guys mass produce the power loader in the future?
No.
No, for quite a few reasons. I'd say the biggest reason is it's a really cool mech, but
it's very expensive, very complicated, requires a lot of maintenance that typical lifting machines don't, and it was obviously, not as practical. Sure, it has a lot of range of motion, but for its cost, you might as well just buy like 5 forklifts.
The thing you have to remember is this was based off of a movie, and that means it was made to look cool, not necessarily super functional. Could we design a mech that could be mass produced? Sure. Would it look like this? Probably not.
And there's also a lot of concerns in terms of like safety. Standing and having your legs crushed by whatever you're picking up, or just in general, just standing. Like, imagine having to drive this thing for 8 hours a day. You'd be standing in the cockpit for 8 hours a day. Like that, it's not fun as a driver.
No. How long can the power loader run without refueling?
So the typical Caterpillar can run about 8 hours per tank of gas. So at 10, 12 kilometers an hour, we can get about 80 kilometers of range out of it. At full power, that probably drops down to about 3 hours of operation.
Yeah, it really depends how much you're stressing the system, just like any piece of heavy equipment.
So if you're running the engine at full speed and you're picking up heavy stuff and driving it around a lot, I'd say about 3 hours of operation.
What will you do with the power loader now that it's completed and tested? Will it become almost like a channel mascot, and will we see it more? Most definitely. We've got the power loader now. It's not going to sit in the corner collecting dust. We're actually going to use it around the shop, even when it might not be that convenient to use. Yeah. I know Bogdan's going to want any excuse possible to get in the power loader, pick up some steel, and try and awkwardly load the plasma tape.
I don't think we can.
Can we even fit over there? It might be a bit tight, but
yeah.
Where we can, we'll definitely use it. And the big thing we're looking forwards to is being able to take this thing to events, have people come here to check it out. There's a ton of possibilities. Yeah,
realistically, it is just a big forklift, and we can use it for lifting stuff, but these grippers are not super practical for typical pallets or boxes. So we're going to be making some attachments in the future, and one of those is just going to be a regular set of pallet forks, and then you can use it as a forklift.
So speaking of that, what are the pros and cons compared to forklifts? Forklifts are pretty affordable because they're mass produced. And the reason they're super functional is because the entire transportation industry has kind of been built around the idea of a forklift, using a fork to pick up a pallet. So that's the main reason why a machine like this isn't going to replace a forklift, because the infrastructure isn't there. Palletizing things is what's revolutionized the shipping industry, manufacturing, tons of things. You can find literally anything. This is more convenient for picking up strange shaped items, which could be more useful for, I don't know, an R&D facility or a spaceship with lots of different stuff, but that might run into some other issues, running diesel engines in space, you know, all kinds of problems.
And in addition, unlike a forklift, this thing can barely reach the ground. It can't even touch the ground with its grippers. It's about 6 inches off the ground when it bends all the way forward, and it can only place just above its head. Whereas a forklift can go all the way down to the ground and way up above on top of racking.
But you do definitely look a lot cooler using this than driving a forklift.
Can't argue with that.
Does it come in black?
Yes, as long as it's Caterpillar yellow.
If there's anything that you would change on the power loader, what would it be?
This is a good one. One of the things that I hate about the power loader is the way that we've done the grippers. As you may know, the initial grippers were a little bit of a different design, and the way that we've mounted them prevents them from being removed or maintained very easily. In order to remove the gripper, you have to take the fingers off, you have to take the hydraulics off, you have to take the rods out, you have to take the hydraulics out, and only then can you finally reach the screws to get the gripper off. So you basically have to disassemble the entire gripper to take it off the power loader.
Whereas we're hoping to make different attachments and different hands for the power loader that are ideally at least somewhat quick release.
Yeah. Yeah, so right now it takes I'd say about 4 hours to remove a single gripper. Ooh. Not very practical.
No. What was the total cost of all the parts, and how many hours in total did it take to build? So this was a very, very expensive project. Luckily, we had some great industry partners like Caterpillar and Bosch Rexroth, and they provided, well, Caterpillar provided the skid steer base, Bosch Rexroth provided some very expensive, very fancy proportional flow control valves for the hydraulics, and just the cost of metal, the welding supplies. We estimate that the bare cost was around $200,000. And that doesn't even include labor.
Yep.
Throw on labor and who knows, we're looking at several $100,000, which is crazy considering you can buy a forklift with a higher load capacity for about 10 grand used.
Yep.
So we could have bought 30 forklifts. Maybe 40.
Sounds about right.
30 to 40 we could have had a fleet of forklifts for one power loader.
This is true.
But the question is,
we do have a
40 forklifts versus one power loader, who would win?
The forklifts.
Probably, yeah. How do you go about transporting something that big? Well, we're actually planning on buying a truck just for moving this sucker around. We're looking into getting a flatbed tow truck, the kind that the bed can actually come off of the truck so we can just drive this on. The issue is this thing weighs a lot. We're estimating it's around 11,000 pounds, which exceeds the towing capacity of most pickup trucks, which is why we'll actually need a small, actual tow truck in order to move this. But I can see we're going to need moving it quite often, so might as well invest in a truck.
Or we can just drive it
compared to
anywhere.
the cost of this, a truck's nothing.
You're just driving around.
Mech battles.
Well, we are planning on doing more mechs in the future, and it is remote controlled, so we can technically put it through its paces without having to worry about pilot safety, which is a big step forward in the robot fighting industry. I'm looking at you, Megabots.
I feel like the most practical way of doing mech battles is creating mechs that can actually just fall over safely. And really it's a matter of, it's almost like sumo wrestling at that point.
Tipping itself over.
Instead of trying to physically destroy the other mech, which is a big issue because these are very expensive, if you could have some kind of battle where it's more like sumo wrestling, where you either have to push the mech out or tip it over or something, and it's not going to get that hurt, then it might be a bit more practical. The other thing is I feel like this size mech is a bit more realistic for a mech battle, because the bigger things are, the bigger they fall.
And
that's
the
a big problem.
slower they move too.
Yeah.
You need more power and you need more fluid to be able to move the same speed.
How much time do you spend off-screen planning the mathematical part of the build? The mass of the power loader can lift before tipping over. Do you do it all by hand or do you use a program?
So we use FE analysis for most of the mathematical calculations in SolidWorks, being able to calculate center of gravity, loads, and all that kind of stuff. And I'd say it's probably about 15 to 20% of my time working on this has been just confirming my numbers and figuring out what we can pick up, what we can do safely, what it can take, all that kind of stuff.
So how much of your time, though?
About 15%.
50%.
15.
Math isn't... Oh.
What? 50%.
50%. Math is important. Don't.
What?
What?
Not 50%. No.
50? 15.
Actually, doing the FE analysis and stuff is probably 15. So
You heard him. 50% of his time is spent on math. Don't drop out of math.
Math is pretty important. I've got a notebook that thick of just power loader calculations.
What motivated you to build the power loader?
James did.
It's pretty hard to believe that when was it, 2014? Yeah, in 2014, there's a clip on YouTube of me saying, you know what, it would be fun to build a power loader someday. I'm like, it would probably cost about $10,000 to build. I have no idea how I came up with that number.
Wrong.
Damn. Time flies when you're having fun building power loaders.
This is true.
Can you guys make different arms for the power loader? Like now it has some kind of hands, but can you switch it with two lightsabers that come out of its arms? If you do it, it will be a lot of work, and I can understand you, but I don't think this message will be on Q&A, so I wrote this message for nothing.
Yes, you did.
Will you ever do a big motion film with a power loader, similar to what you did when you created all the Mandalorian gear? It's a cool idea, and honestly, now that we have the power loader, we would be open to featuring it in someone's short film or maybe the real Aliens movie. Call us.
I mean, the power loader is in The Bounty.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first scene of it working.
Yeah, that's true.
Can the power loader upright itself if it falls over?
I think so, but the problem is if it were to fall over, the engine would probably stall, in which case it wouldn't be able to.
How does it feel to drive as it's completely finished? How's the handling? Is it comfortable, smooth?
It's kind of scary because you are very top heavy. So driving over large bumps or large pieces of debris, you kind of feel like it's going to tip over at any moment, even though it is actually pretty stable. The arms are a little bit jerky right now. We do have limits set, so you can't hit yourself with it. But if you're carrying something big and the arms are jerking around while you're trying to drive at high speeds, it is pretty scary because you never know what's going to happen. And if something falls on your legs, it's going to be a bad day.
But maybe we should have a third party review it. I think we should call it the straight pipes so they can do an official vehicle review on the power loader.
Yeah. Have them drive around the track at 10 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, very cool, but can it run Crysis?
Actually, I do think the power loader can run Crysis. We have 3 Raspberry Pis as well as an NVIDIA Jetson NX inside of this thing. Hey Ben! Do you think that the power loader can run Crisis? Yeah, you have to play remotely.
How much wiring is inside the power loader?
So I did a rough calculation. There's about 2 kilometers of wiring inside the power loader.
And why were you curious about that number?
Because James posted 7, and I was like, 7?
But
Where the heck did he get that number?
From Rainbow Six Siege.
What?
That's why.
Oh.
Over 7 kilometers of internal wiring in the Rainbow Six Siege Twitch drone.
Oh.
All right, final question. Are we going to get Sigourney Weaver to pilot this thing?
I really hope so. I think that she would enjoy driving a power loader quite a bit, considering that she hasn't actually ever driven a power loader.
She's pretended to.
She's pretended to. Yeah.
I mean, it'd be pretty cool if James Cameron came too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not to mention, he's also working on Avatar 2, 3, and 4, which also has a giant mech, which we could be convinced to build. Maybe. Anyway, I think that wraps up all the questions. If you guys have any other questions, let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to check out all 16 videos about the build. There's literally hours of footage of us building this thing, from designing it, to assembling it, to troubleshooting it. We've shared pretty much the entire process on the internet.
Yep. Thank you so much for following along with this ridiculous project. We've got a lot more videos coming with the power loader, as well as another mech. So stay tuned, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hit that notification bell.